Chapter 26, the plot against Jesus. When Jesus had finished saying all these things, he said to his disciples, "As you know, Passover is in 2 days, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." Then the chief priests and the elders of the peoples assembled in the palace of the high priest, whose name was Caiaphas, and they plotted to arrest Jesus in some sly way and kill him, but not during the feast, they said, or there may be a riot among the people. Jesus anointed at Bethany. While Jesus was in Bethany in the home of a man known as Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, which she poured on his head as he was reclining at the table. When the disciples saw this, they were indignant. "Why the waste?" they asked. "This perfume could have been sold at a high price and the money given to the poor." Aware of this, Jesus said to them, "Why are you bothering this woman? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor will always have with you, but you will not always have me. When she poured the perfume on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. I tell you the truth, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." Excuse me. I get up like at 6 a.m. every morning and I work very, very hard all day long. I take a couple breaks watching YouTube videos, but I'm watching like Jordan Peterson or something like uplifting and positive. I don't need to justify it yawning, okay? Back to the Matthew chapter 25. Judas agrees to betray Jesus. Then one CF the 12, the one called Judas, went to the chief priests and asked, "What are you willing to give me if I hand him over to you?" So they counted him out 30 silver coins. From then on, Judas watched for an opportunity to hand him over. Snitches get stitches. The Lord's Supper. On the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Where do you want us to make preparations for you to eat the Passover?" He replied, "Go into the city to a certain man and tell him, 'The teacher says, my appointed time is near. I am going to celebrate Passover with my disciples at your house.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them and prepared the Passover. When evening came, Jesus was reclining at the table with the 12, and while they were eating, he said, "I tell you the truth, one of you will betray me." They were very sad and began to say to him one after the other, "Surely not I, Lord." Jesus replied, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him to not have been born." Then Judas, the one who would betray him, said, "Surely not I, Rabbi." Jesus answered, "Yes, it is I. It is you." While they were eating, Jesus took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take and eat, this is my body." Then he took the cup, gave thanks, and offered it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink of this fruit or the vine from now on until that day when I drink it anew with you in my Father's kingdom." When they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Jesus predicts Peter's denial. Then Jesus told them, "This very night you will all fall away on account of me, for it is written, 'I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered.' But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." Peter replied, "Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will." "I tell you the truth," Jesus answered, "this very night, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." But Peter declared, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." And all the other disciples said the same. Gethsemane. Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." Going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." Then he returned to the disciples and found them sleeping. "Could you men not keep watch for me in 1 hour?" he asked Peter. "Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the body is weak." He went away a second time and prayed, "My Father, it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it. May your will be done." When he came back, he again found them sleeping, because their eyes were so heavy. So he left them and went away, once more and prayed the third time, saying the same thing. Then he returned to the disciples and said to them, Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour is near, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer. Jesus arrested. While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd armed with swords and clubs sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. This one I kiss is the man, arrest him. Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, Greetings, Rabbi, and kissed him. Jesus replied, Friend, do what you came for. Then the men stepped forward, seized Jesus, and arrested him. With that, one of Jesus' companions reached for the sword, drew it out, and stuck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Put your sword back in place, Jesus said to him. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Okay, put your sword back in its place, Jesus said to him, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Do not think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels. But how they would the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must happen this way. At that time Jesus said to the crowd, Am I leading a rebellion that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I sat in the temple courts teaching, and you did not arrest me. But this has all taken place that the writings of the prophets might be fulfilled. Then all the disciples deserted him and fled. Before the Sanhedrin, those who arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the teachers of the law and the elders had assembled. But Peter followed him at a distance, right up to the courtyard of the high priest. He entered and sat down with the guards to see the outcome. The chief priest and the whole Sanhedrin went looking for false evidence against Jesus so they could put him to death. But they did not find any, though many false witnesses came forward. Finally 2 came forward and declared, This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days. Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, Are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that men are bringing against you? But Jesus remained silent. The high priest said to him, I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are Christ, the Son of God. Yes, it is as you say, Jesus replied. But I say to you, all of you, in the future you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming out of the clouds of heaven. Then the high priest took his clothes and said, He has spoken blasphemy. Why do we need any more witnesses? Look now, you have heard the blasphemy. What do you think? He is worthy of death, they answered. Then they spit in his face and struck him with their fists. Others slapped him and said, Prophesy to us, Christ. Who hit you? Peter disowns Jesus. Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him. You also were with Jesus of Galilee, she said. But he denied it before them all. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. Then he went out in the gateway where another girl saw him and said to the people there, This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth. He denied it again with an oath. I don't know the man. After a little while, those standing there went up to Peter and said, Surely you are the one, for your accent gives you away. Then he begins to call down curses on himself, and he swore to him, I don't know the man. Immediately a rooster crowed. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken. Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. And he went outside and wept bitterly. Judas hangs himself. Early in the morning, all the chief priests and the elders of the people came to the decision to put Jesus to death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. When Judas, who had betrayed him, saw that Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse and returned the 30 silver coins to the chief priests and the elders. I have sinned, he said, for I have betrayed innocent blood. What is that to us? They replied. That's your responsibility. So Judas threw the money into the temple and left. Then he went away and hanged himself. The chief priest picked up the coins and said, It is against the law to put this into the treasury. I was reading ahead. That was actually chapter 27, but I couldn't resist the part about Judas. In the last book I read, The Catcher in the Rye, there's a part of the book where Holden Caulfield, he's a very cynical person, but he's not necessarily religious, but he does talk about the Bible and Jesus. And he says he likes to ask Catholics if they think Judas went to hell after killing himself. And he said every Catholic that he's asked had said yes, Judas definitely went to hell after killing himself. But then Holden says, as the narrator, the omniscient narrator, Holden says, I'll bet you $20 Jesus didn't send old Judas to hell, you know, after he killed himself. Jesus was one of the nicest guys. The disciples were always letting him down, you know. And it's not like he had the time to go around and find the best disciples. He just chose the 12 that were there. And Jesus was all about forgiveness. He would have forgiven Judas for hanging himself. And that's something I really enjoyed in the book, and something I always remember forever. And it's fitting that I read it a few days later in this Hawaiian Bible. You speak Hawaiian?